All right, today's introduction was a mouthful, so I'm not going to repeat it here. Today, I had two wrestling greats on the show. I had Olympian and entrepreneur Buddy Lee, who came back to be co-host of Back Points today, which is thrilling. Buddy Lee is also sponsoring today's episode, so if you want to get a jump rope for yourself or your team, go to buddyleejump.com and use the affiliate code BACKPOINTS20. That's BACKPOINTS20 for 20% off any jump rope or jump ropes you want to buy. These are the best jump ropes in the world. I use one myself. If you're watching on video, you can see it right here. It's a beautiful jump rope. You know, you can see it spinning. You know, go out and get a Buddy Lee jump rope. If you're going to jump rope, and if you're an athlete, if you're a wrestler, you should be jumping rope. And if you're going to jump rope, you might as well use the best jump rope in the world. So get some self-respect. Go out, get yourself a Buddy Lee jump rope. Now, for today's guest, we have the great John Hanrahan. John has an amazing story, and I'm about to list his accomplishments once I start the show, so I'm going to repeat only a few of them here. GQ magazine has featured him as the guy you should know for fitness. He's a world champion, freestyle veteran wrestler. He's the author of a great book called Wrestling with Angels. He's a top fashion model. And before all of this, he was a two-time state champion from Falls Church High School in Virginia. As always, please rate and review the podcast if you like it, and let's get rolling.
He taught me to get up when I didn't want to get up, when I wanted to quit.
I had high goals, man. I've always had high goals.
And so when I won it, I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, you guys are right.
It's not the thrill of winning. It's the joy of having that personal goal and being able to achieve that and walk off the mat with your head held high and with your hand up.
That just fueled my fire. And I was in every state championship match from there on until I graduated.
That was when I really started doing the kind of wrestling that I was capable of.
Anybody that steps in the ring and just decides to commit the entire time is a state champion in my book.
Yeah, I still remember you, John, walking out with your chest out. John Hanrahan always had this chest. Boom. He's lats like that. He was always like that, right?
Don't exaggerate, buddy. Don't exaggerate.
Here we go. Welcome back to another episode of Back Points, the podcast where top wrestlers reveal their secrets for winning on the mat and beyond the mat. This is the first episode recorded in 2021, and I'm excited that we have a new format. I'm joined with my co-host, the great Buddy Lee, U.S. Olympic wrestler from Virginia, businessman, and inventor of the most advanced jump rope on the planet, the foremost authority on jump ropes for conditioning. We're lucky today to be joined by another wrestling great, John Hanrahan. Just to name a few accomplishments, John is a United World Wrestling veteran world champion, won the gold in 2016. Before that, he was a two-time All-American for Penn State. And before that, he was a two-time state champion at Falls Church High School in Virginia. Outside of wrestling, John became one of the most successful personal trainers in the country, a top fashion model, and the author of the book, Wrestling with Angels, about his 1985 near-death experience and return to life, which is available for order now. John, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thank you, Will. Thanks for that great introduction. It's great to be with you and my old friend, Buddy Lee.
Yeah, man. Great to see you. You're looking great. Looking great.
Thank you, guys.
So how did you guys first know each other?
We stood next to each other at the 1977 Virginia AAA state championships in Richmond, Virginia.
Yeah.
I didn't know Buddy before that weekend, but I was honored to stand amongst the group. Buddy was a senior, and I was a junior that year for Falls Church. And then we started seeing each other at things like the Midlands, NCAA D1 events.
Yeah.
Things like that.
That's awesome.
And you can never forget a name like that. Hanrahan. Amazing name, just like Buddy Lee.
Hey, when people say, Coach, how do you pronounce your name? I do a little charades with them. I say, Hanrahan.
Nice. I love that. Hanrahan. Yeah, nice.
Buddy, I bet you've never had to tell anybody how to pronounce your name.
Most people thinking I'm Chinese. If they don't see me, they think I'm Chinese. I had a Chinese guy ask me yesterday, so how did you get a name like Lee? You know, you got Chinese in your in your blood, and so I just tell the story that yes, I'm related to Bruce Lee.
So, John, there's so much to talk about today, but your book came out in June, I think. How's that going?
It's going really well. It was just honored as one of the best books for 2021. #1 best new wrestling book by bookauthority.org. And so I was kind of honored to get that, even though it was just a very challenging time for my publisher and I to launch a book. Nothing like this has ever happened. We had a number of book events planned in DC and Northern Virginia and New York City and Los Angeles and Miami, all the places that I've lived and worked. And then I think the first one that we're going to be able to do is probably out in Vegas at the US Open. We're trying to hopefully get the green light to do that. And so we'll do a live book event, and it's going real well. So I'm excited about it. Here's a little picture of it. Thing I love most, I got my 2 sons on the back with me, picture of us.
Yeah, nice. And, nice cover, man. Nice.
So it's kind of a father-son story. It's kind of it's just kind of an epic adventure in modern American life that has a lot to do with the scourge that hit our country, the opioid addiction. You've met my sons, and they both say hi to you. When we were back in Northern Virginia, my wife, I told her yesterday we're going to be on a podcast together. She said to send her love to you, and
I still recall.
Buddy gave us an amazing performance on my back deck in Herndon, Virginia, when I was back in DC with the jump rope. And then I brought him in. I was managing and training a staff of 30 high-end professional trainers.
Your trainers. I remember that. Yeah, your trainers. Yeah.
I had the opportunity to bring Buddy Lee in and really give him a taste of a great fitness tool that many of them were overlooking. So Buddy and I go way back.
Yeah. Cool. So how the kids, are they back then they were grasshoppers, but how old are they now?
They're in their 20s now. And my son Colin has just graduated film school in London. And luckily he got his degree right before that pandemic set in, because it would have been really tough having him over there and not knowing what to do with getting to classes. And he actually had to produce films as a student filmmaker. And then we went over for the gala about a year ago, December, right before the pandemic. And it wasn't a typical graduation. It was awesome. It was like a little mini Academy Awards at the British Film Institute. And they showed all the students' films, and in a big auditorium with some famous British filmmakers in there. And then his film won the best picture of the whole event. So
that's nice to hear.
I was really excited. It was like my son just won the NCAA championships or something. As a wrestler dad, as a wrestler dad, I was really excited just to kind of see my son compete in that arena and just to come out a winner. We were just thrilled for him.
Nice to hear. Right. Yeah. I can see him producing making the book a film. Right, a movie.
Well, yeah, and he really wanted to share his story with me, because when I first began writing my memoir, my manuscript for this book, it was really something that happened to me in 1985. I was 25 years old, and I incurred a near-death experience. I was actually had a lethal injection that was administered by a physician that was. A physician in New York City. They ended up in jail for manslaughter about a month later in a different situation. But the story has all kinds of twists and turns. And in 1985, after I transcended this physical life, my soul pulled out of my body and went in front of the Creator. And it was it's hard to describe in an instance. That's why I knew I had to write the book when I returned to life. And so that. My book is a culmination of that, and really I began writing it as a kind of a life review, because when you have an experience like that, you may have heard a number of people talk about NDEs, near-death experience. You really can kind of see your life in an instance. You go beyond a realm of time, and it's just amazing to kind of be filled with the truth and love of the Creator. And so I began to write my story, and it took me many years to kind of put it together. But it begins as a life review, growing up as a kid in Northern Virginia in a big Irish Catholic family. But then something happened along the way before the book was finished. My older son, Colin, who I call Connor in the book, used a different name, even though he wanted to tell his story. And he wanted to share it to help others. He was a high school wrestler. He went back into wrestling. He did it as a youth and went back in, made the high school team, and then broke his leg in an event. Well, all of a sudden he got put on those prescription opioids, and that prescription led to a deep addiction, something that we would have never have imagined. He wasn't like a crazy kid like me, buddy, running around Northern Virginia partying and stuff. He was like nose to the grindstone book, straight A's, and didn't hang out with raucous crowds or do much that anything raised any red flags. So my books are kind of a cautionary tale for any family in America that is in the suburbs of Atlanta or anywhere that can have their sons or daughters or spiral into this scourge that's hitting America. And so it's a cautionary tale about that. And it's about how he overcame it too. And he had some really close encounters with death. And it's how it really tests a family's faith and a husband and wife's partnership, because it puts so many stressors on it, and it's hard to stay together. There's a lot of blame that goes back and forth that separates so many families. So it's a testament to, I think, my wife for, she's been amazing through this whole journey, so much so that we founded a nonprofit in hopes of helping other families. We call it recoveryangel.org, and it's a 501c3. And we've helped in the past year about 25 commitments to treatments and sober living homes that have been helpful. And it's a small nonprofit, but it's something that we hope that it grows. And the proceeds of my book go to help that.
Wow. Does that help people in your community, or is it people anywhere?
It's helped people farther away in the Northeast. My wife counsels many family members and helps them to kind of take the first right steps and to really kind of have faith and hold it together, because it can really tug at your heart and kind of tear you apart, because relapse is such a common denominator in individuals' recovery. And you've got these parents that are spending so much out of pocket, and then with hope that the kids will get it right, or young adults, and all of a sudden they hit a relapse, and it's really a real test. And you start to, not to understand that it's a disease, and it takes continual treatment. Yeah. So it's challenging, it's tough, but it's a worthy endeavor.
Wow. So so you had this near-death experience in 1985. That's part of the book, and then it also tells your son's story, which would have occurred, I'm guessing, 15 years later, something like that.
Yeah, his occurred 11 years ago.
Wow.
It was the brunt of his, and during that time, we packed up and got out of the area. We did everything we could. I took a job running 24-Hour Fitness's largest health club out in Irvine, California for a year, and just thought we needed to just get away. But then he was doing well out there and relapsed, and it was just we were just kind of on our last leg, and it's kind of just an odyssey that we've been on, but it's one that by the grace of God, he's come through it and wants to share his message as a young adult to help others that are going through this. Do you know, in a 10-year period, we lost more souls in America to the scourge of opioids and deaths of despairs, or how they're classified by the Institute of Health, than we did in all the wars outside the Civil War. Over 700,000 have died in a 10-year period. And now it's been brushed under the carpet with all the focus on the pandemic and individuals aren't getting treatment, they're isolating, and when the stats come out for 2020, it's going to be staggering of how much, and now with the laced fentanyl that's coming in with China and all these different situations that are just escalating it. So it'll be on the front burner again soon.
Well, that's amazing. Wow.
Yeah, it's a powerful story.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting the book. When is the book available, John?
It's available wherever you get your great books. It's came out June 16th, so it is available. Amazon.com. Wrestling with Angels by John Hanrahan.
Okay, it's on Amazon. That's great. And this and the I think the nonprofit, that's going to be awesome. RecoveryAngel.com.
No, .org. RecoveryAngel.org. Yes, sir.
.org. And people can just go there and they can donate. You got a place on there where they can donate.
The click to donate in, and so those are, any donations are always appreciated to help this effort, and proceeds from my book go to help the effort as well. So, for me, something that anchored me later in life, after my near-death experience, it took me a while to kind of get back into wrestling. And it wasn't until I met my wife, Kirsten, on a shoot for Vogue magazine out in Las Vegas by one of the top photographers in the world. And he had booked both of us and some other guys. And he wanted guys that looked like fighters and stuff. So there was some young professional boxers there. And then a number of the top female models. And I met my wife, Kirsten, on that shoot, and then we'd run into each other. We'd both working in Milan and Paris, and slowly we became better acquainted, and married her and had my 2 sons, and just kind of a Cinderella story with that. So that was cool. Great things. And that all came about when I was wrestling for Penn State against Lehigh on a match that was televised. A prominent agent up in New York City just happened to be channel surfing and stopped and saw the chyron under my name when I was getting ready to step out against Lehigh. It said John Hanrahan, Falls Church, Virginia. And he called directory assistance. And from there, I started getting booked for these big campaigns up in New York. So it was kind of cool the way all that happened, and fell into that. But wrestling became an anchor for me later because my wife had never known me as a wrestler. So before, I think it was right after we got married, I stepped back and entered the New York AC Open. And you know that tournament, buddy.
Yeah, up in New York.
And for years, I was their number 1 guy, and I kind of felt like I'd let them down in '84. And so I came back, and Sonny Greenall invited me back in, and I ended up winning the New York AC tournament. I think it was 1991. So my wife had never seen me as a wrestler. So she spent the day there kind of watching me battle it out and get my black and blues and
yeah, that's right, man.
All those scars. And so then she knew me as a wrestler, and it wasn't until later when I was training some very high-end clients at La Palestra in New York City that part of really my mission was to help individuals lock onto a goal that they wanted to accomplish. So the training became kind of a path to itself. It wasn't about looking better in the mirror, just the aesthetics. I wanted my clients to accomplish things. New York Marathon was a big one that we had many of them do and train for that, and just a year and a half of work. And then when they crossed that finish line, and we gave them a great celebration at the facility, which was right on Central Park West. It was just amazing to see the results in people's eyes. And I did that for Hollywood clients and all kinds of clients. It helped one woman climb Mount Everest and all kinds of unique adventures that we started to infuse in clients' training. So that, now you see that's kind of gravitated with what they do in CrossFit and the Spartan runs and things like that. And it really makes sense to help people accomplish things that they're able to hold on to, because wrestling for me was something I've always held on to, and it helped ground me. And it truly has become a martial art type of practice for me, just to kind of creates a sense of fellowship with the guys that I work out with at the local club that that we have, a veterans club, and now with the advent of mixed martial art, you got them coming out of the woodwork. All Brazilian jiu-jitsu guys that want to know how to get a takedown, right, buddy?
That's right. Yeah, man. Yeah.
So we just having a kind of amazing fellowship here with this group that we have in Atlanta. And now, once I entered the veteran, in the U.S. they call it the Masters National Championship.
Masters. Yeah.
So I went out to Vegas to do that, and I met a whole group of U.S. guys that are part of that. So it's amazing. And then I tried my hand at the World Championships, and it's amazing the level of competition that you'll have there. And first time I went out there, I lost to three-time Olympian Jose Betancourt, real tough. And then so I kind of renewed my effort and came back the following year and won the championship and dethroned a guy that they thought couldn't be beaten, Willem Putter, 10-time veteran world champion. So,
oh my God!
So that was rewarding for me to get that and to kind of exercise the demons of my past, so to speak, buddy.
Yeah, the amazing John Hanrahan. John, let's ask something. Let's go back down to memory lane. Back in 1977, you won that state title.
Yeah.
Against
I remember it like yesterday.
Relive it.
Oh my God. There's so much to relive with that, but it was crazy that I had the flu that whole week. And so I was wrestling 155. The year before I had placed third in the state as a 126 pounder. And I was sucking weight, and I lost in a referee's decision overtime to the champ from Menchville, Yang Lee, another Lee.
Lee? Yeah.
Yang Lee from Menchville.
Yeah, Yang
and
Lee.
It was so close, and it was a judge's decision. And as a 10th grade, I was like, So he just crushed the guy in the finals, and I was like, oh man, I deserved. Why, one of the things as a wrestler is like, you need to know in those times of tough battles that I deserve to be here, and there's nobody that's going to stop me. So from there, I knew that I deserved to be there in the finals and stuff. But I knew what I knew that I didn't deserve to do was to cut 20 pounds to make that weight. So the following year, I was like, I'm not sucking that weight again. So I moved up to 155, which 3 weight classes, kind of turned a lot of heads, but I was having fun that year. Just there was something to that. I was pretty lean as it was too, but I didn't want to make that big weight suck again. But I had the flu, so I showed up 5 pounds under, and I was an underdog for that tournament because in the regionals I had been upset in the regional tournament, and this part of the story is in my book, but not about the loss that I suffered the next day. It was a crazy situation. My sister had a friend. I have 4 older sisters. Had a friend whose friend killed somebody in a fit of rage, and he ended up on our doorstep. And this was the night before the regionals, and it was just crazy. And then I was trying to sleep for that tournament and stuff, but my father calmed that guy down and took him down to Fairfax County Police and had him turn himself in, and they acted as kind of a character witness for him during his trial and everything. So that was kind of a crazy memory from that week. And then that next morning, I had lost to a guy from Hayfield in a close match, and then I came back the next day and beat him for the bronze. So I'm going into that state tournament as a lower seed, and so. Yeah. And plus I have the flu. And so I got the best guy from the Virginia Beach region, guy from Great Bridge, who was the champion. And he didn't know what hit him that night because, even though I was sick, I knew I just blew through this guy. And that's really what happened. So I just blew through that tournament. I joined you in that state champion picture there the next day with you.
That's
and
right, man.
Bobo Ricks. And
we had some amazing wrestlers.
Great Coliseum. Great to have him at the University of Richmond and that beautiful Coliseum, and all the best of the best there in the state, and pretty much one division back then. So that's my memories, and so that was great. And then I repeated that championships at 155 the next year. And during that summer, right after that junior year, I made it to the AAU National High School Finals, and got back to the high school national finals the summer of my senior year for United States Wrestling Federation, Iowa City. But in the meantime, I got my share of recruiting visits. Wade Shallis recruited me at Clemson, and Stan Desick was the assistant at Michigan State. And then there was a guy I didn't know about how great he was. Andy Matter was the assistant coach at Penn State. And they started recruiting me late in the game. And I didn't know much about Penn State, but after one weekend trip up there, I knew that's where I wanted to wrestle. So I wanted to, work as hard as I could and wrestle in a venue where people show up and they're knowledgeable and they support all the hard work and effort that you put in. And that's what I got at Penn State. Nice. And I got my spot there my freshman year and never lost it, and qualified for 4 NCAA championships and All-American in 2 of them, behind the Schultz brothers in both of those podium appearances. So I got behind 2 Olympic champs, and the founder of the Penn State 100-win club. So I'm the first ever to surpass 100 wins. So when all these superstars nowadays, like Bo Nichols, I saw him at the Southern Scuffle win his 100th match, and I told him, "Welcome to my 100-win club." I'm the founder.
That's very pretty cool. So you were behind. So you wrestled behind Dave and Mark Schultz.
I was same weight class with Mark my junior year and Dave my senior year. I lost out in the final junior world trials against Mark. Is the only time we wrestled my junior year. I think it was at the final training camp for junior world team, and Mark beat me 2-1 in that match. And
that's what I thought. It was a close match. I think I recall seeing you wrestle one of the top guys, and it was very, very close.
Yeah, well, we all remained friends. I'm still friends with Mark. We keep in touch, and I went down at age 36. I was talking to you guys about having my clients lock onto a goal and train for it. Well, at age 36, I did that with the Olympic trials and went back through. Turned out I had Rico Ciparelli and John Jura in New York City to train with.
Yeah.
Facility. So I kind of just did a shock and awe to my body. First 2-3 weeks of training, just, couldn't walk, and really got back into high-level wrestling shape, and had those guys in my corner along the way. Went down to train. They both were out of Foxcatcher, so I went down there and brought my wife and kids down there, so they got to see that whole craziness down there when I'd go down there to train. Greg Alinsky, one of my college teammates, was there, and his wife, and so when Dave got murdered, it was we knew right away who did it, and because we had heard all the stories, and I was able to get Diane Sawyer, was one of the clients I was training up in New York City, and get her the exclusive interview with Nancy. She was in the next day because she knew I knew Dave, and so I called Alinsky, and Alinsky hooked it up with Nancy Schultz to come up and do the exclusive interview about the whole situation. And then I competed in those trials against representing Nancy Schultz's club, the Schultz Club, and I did beat some young NCAA champ there. Ray Miller, beat him from Arizona State. He was probably 20 years younger than me, and so it was just great to be back as a wrestler at that level. Got to the final of the regional event, the Olympic Trials regional event in Brockport. So that was cool.
Yeah, man.
And so I never wanted to get out of wrestling shape after that. And so I've always kept it, like I said, as my own martial art, and then competed at the veteran venue.
So no bad injuries or anything? No shoulder injuries, hip injuries, knee injuries?
No, I've had some wear and tear in the joints, and but all in all, it's nothing I want to complain about.
Yeah, that's amazing that you're staying in great shape, man.
Thank you.
I salute you.
Appreciate it.
I do want to ask, so you were basically one of the top wrestlers in the state by the time you were a sophomore in high school. First of all, what about your freshman year? And then when did you get started in wrestling?
Okay, yeah. I got started in second grade. I did boys club football in first grade, and just in our neighborhood was just man, we were always just staying physical, playing like pickup football, and just heavy duty tackling. And then our neighbor, he ran like a Texaco station down on Route 50, and he piled us all in the back of his pickup truck, and we all of a sudden I was in an organized football team. And then the following fall, the next fall, I got the flyer came to the school I was at, and I brought it home, and I was so excited. And I said, Mom, I know what I'm going to do my next sport. And I said, boxing. I'm going to do boxing. And I was so excited. And she steered me away from that but I had my mind made up. But it took like a few go arounds between me and her that she said she looked on the sheet and saw wrestling. So she steered me towards that. Turned out she had been to an event at Naval Academy on a blind date or something. And she really kind of thought it was a cool sport, I think. And so I kind of credit my mom for steering me into the world's greatest and oldest sport, which was cool. So I grew up doing boys club since second grade, first in the Annandale Boys Club. And then I got a letter, it was a recruiting letter by Roger Rinker for his Braddock Road Boys Club that competed in this Capital Area Beltway League. I didn't know it existed, but I went in, and I went on that team, and you had to wrestle off to make the team. And you made that team, you were wearing these blue and gold silk robes, and the beautiful singlets, and you're competing against guys at the highest level of that age group. So I did that, and from that group that came out of there, these guys that came out of that club sprinkled around Northern Virginia high schools, and they were all pretty competitive at the state level. I made the varsity right away my freshman year, wrestling for Falls Church at 112 pounds. And then I lost to my good friend, Sam Smith, over the Christmas break. We had one wrestle off. His brother, Donnie, was the state champion, was wrestling on a D1 team at Indiana State. And so he came from a great wrestling lineage out of our neighborhood. And I lost that one match to him, and I never got a second wrestle off for the rest of that year. And so I just tore up everybody in any kind of JV event, and just kind of smoldered there for that whole season. And it was when I got the opportunity that following year, I was just like, I'm going to make the coach regret making that decision. You know how things build up in you, buddy. You just you lock on the things to burn. That was probably the best thing that could happen to me, really, because
you channeled the energy into wrestling.
Harder. Yeah, and it's great to kind of prove people wrong, right? When you look back, I remember right before the NCAA semifinal event, somebody coming up to me, and you're in that, you kind of glazed over look when you kind of get your mind ready to step on the mat in a moment like that. But I remember a guy coming up to me, "Oh, John, you're doing so great. I always knew you could do it." And I just remember just halfway acknowledging, but thinking to myself, I mean, that guy always told me I was never going to do it.
Yeah, that's right. Everybody jumping in moments like that bandwagon once you start winning. Yeah. So let me ask you, I'd like to ask something in regards to your coach. What kind of relationship did you have with your high school coach, and did he have a great impact on you as a young athlete, student athlete?
Absolutely. He is an amazing man, just really instilled all the traits that are great about wrestling. Steve Wilcox is his name, Dr. Steve Wilcox. And just to wrestle for him was just amazing. He never left any stone unturned in our preparation. And he'd do whatever he thought was best for us. Like, so what inspired me when I was like 12 years old was seeing Dan Gable win that gold medal, right? And then probably like 4 years later, when I was a young kid, he took me up to watch the NCAA Nationals. They were at Princeton that year. So just the fact that he did that for me and a few other guys really planted the seed for me. And then after the first session, he goes, now this is where what's really valuable. He took us down to the wrestling room between sessions. And there he was, Dan Gable with a crowd around him. He was showing techniques and, somebody on the old time Super 8, filming him and everything. And so when he finished showing that move, I went up to him. I said, do you want to go takedowns, Mr. Gable? He was like, no, yeah, that's all right. And I sat against the wall dejected. But then I watched him wrestle for about an hour and just drenched in sweat and going through people. Then he came over to me, grabbed me by the wrist. He goes, let's go, kid. So I'll never forget that. My coach made things like that happen. Like, let's go some takedowns, kid. And so I credit Steve Wilcox for giving me those opportunities, getting me out to, my parents, they always supported me, but they weren't the kind of parents that would kind of manage a wrestler. Like we had 6 kids in our family. Like, it was not easy to get out to those national events, but my high school coach made that happen for us a few times. And that really, really helped to get noticed by some of the big schools and, out nationwide. And so I credit him with that. He's in the Virginia Hall of Fame now, and I'm so proud of him, and we keep in touch. I get since I've written my story too, I get so many heartfelt notes every week from people I've known in the sport, and he's one of them that sent me just some endearing messages.
Nice to hear.
So he's great. And it's funny, after that, when Gable came up to me and said, "Come on, kid, let's go takedowns," I was about 15. Just 3 or 4 years later, I just finished my freshman season at Penn State. I didn't place in NCAAs, but I got named as the top freshman at 167 pounds for Amateur Wrestling News. And I got picked to be the clinician for Gable's clinic in Pittsburgh. And now I'm wrestling with him between sessions, and he's going out of the room to get his mind right, and we're going at it, just battling back and forth. It wasn't like playing around. So it's funny, and that's the great thing about wrestling, that the stars are accessible. That if you're in this sport, you're going to meet those idols, and you're going to meet those guys that you can say to yourself, "Man, I met him, and he's real in my mind, and he works hard." And you get that same type of work ethic, you can be somebody in this sport too. So that's cool about this sport. You can meet kids these days. They can meet, Jason Knopf or Bo Nickel or just any of those superstars in the sport.
What about your drive, man? Where did you get that internal motivation? Did you have it? Did somebody, spark it?
I think I have it. I think I had it. I think I kind of got enough of an obsessive nature to just be relentless, in things.
And what age you think you notice this drive to always be better?
I think it was like second, third year of boys club football that I was hitting so hard that I was breaking face masks, and the coach would instead of getting mad, he would just start laughing and like howling and yelling to everybody, "Hey, look at this guy." And so I like that praise. And I it's kind of kid I'd want to run through a brick wall for a coach, and who's trying to give me that right direction and everything. But I think for me, really, what it was is just wrestling became just kind of an avenue for me. It was kind of it just kind of became my little stage where if I worked hard, I can show up and be the closest thing to a rock star, if you will. I mean, every kid has a dream of, and in our high school, it was like basketball. it was like Penn State. Penn State basketball always sucked, so wrestling was the winter sport. Same with my high school, Falls Church. Basketball always sucked. They were the worst. Nice. But with wrestling, they'd pack it in. They'd turn off the house light, put the spotlights on. And, we had intro music even before anybody did in that whole state or region. Even so much when we go to visiting teams, I'd bring my little cassette recorder. I'd tell the guy at the microphone table, hey, when we come out to warm up, just press play and put the microphone right up to the recorder. So we'd go wrestle over at Marshall High School or somebody, and the home team would look, and they'd see us warm up. We have house music. We're playing Bob Marley.
That's smart.
And
great experience, man.
In their heads. So being part of the group, from my neighborhood, let's say in my neighborhood, I was thinking this morning, we had 6 state titles come out of a 3-block radius called Broyhill Park. 6 state titles and a number of bronze medals and other place winners just come out of that little hotbed area. So at the time, it was the thing to do. And so if you did it, you wanted to have some bragging rights. You wanted to be good at it. And you wanted the older guys that had already been state champs to kind of say, yeah, the kid's done good, So,
well, I know a lot of guys can't see your wrestling from the past. Maybe they can see it on YouTube. But how would you describe yourself as a wrestler? When they think of John Hanrahan, what do you think comes to mind? I mean, what kind of wrestler?
Kind of, Penn State coach Rich Lorenzo, it was kind of a father figure too, and I credit him. But he'd see me as kind of he'd call me a Tasmanian devil, just between me and him, so I mean, just relentless, just kind of in their face, and always just on my feet, really aggressive. And I had enough Greco and freestyle experience. When I was 16, I made a team that got to compete in East Germany and Poland, and so I had this arsenal of throws. So
that's what I remember, throws. That's why I thought you were the Greco guys, because I recall you being an amazing thrower.
So when I hit a headlock, it would be kind of put the guy's heels on the ceiling and make all the people at rec hall say ooh and ah. So there was nothing better than that, right? And right, so from that freshman year, I made the final Greco trials, and after my freshman year for the U.S. team. But then I had to make a decision whether I'm going to stay kind of Greco orientated or kind of be the best I can in folk style. And I really had to make that conscious decision going into my second year at Penn State, because I was forgetting about opponents' leg attacks and just wasn't had my well-rounded game. So I think that's why you see so many great American wrestlers stick with freestyle during the off season, and that's pretty much what I ended up having to do. Even though I love to throw, and
you would have been great, amazing Greco guy. You would have been amazing world champion or something, because you were a natural.
It's fun to learn how to throw. I think, and as you as a Greco Olympian, to me, I always see the expression of those throws are just like the ultimate artistic expression in the sport of wrestling, the ancient sport of wrestling. So it's something that I've always wanted to emulate and trying to be part of when I was a kid. And I saw that was possible, that to go from an arch onto your forehead and take a guy with you, that was just like the ultimate expression. And like that.
Well, I got to admit, I wasn't a thrower in Greco. I modified my freestyle. And I beat the guys that knew Greco because they didn't know how to wrestle a freestyler. So I modified it with the Lieberman's duck to a body attack, and I used to do quick arm drags, and then the throws, they came from when I was on top. Then I would pick the guys up and do 5-pointers. But that's fun. Man, I still recall you just being a natural thrower. You would have just been amazing in Greco. Sorry, I missed you on the team, man. You would have been there on 92 with me. Of course, you had to beat Dan Henderson. Dan Henderson.
We later got Rico Ciparelli ended up starting an MMA gym. We did that together in California. So we had guys like Dan Henderson and Randy Couture. And
Yeah.
part of our fight team called Raw, Real American Wrestling at the time. And so I was in the cage with those guys. And, so just an amazing time because as everything kind of played out the way I always argue with New York City cab drivers. They tell me about like a pro wrestler and all this stuff. Like, come on, man.
They
brainwash what a wrestler can do. So MMA gave us the venue to show what our wrestlers can do.
That's exactly right.
So I always like to ask, did you ever want to quit wrestling?
I don't think I ever wanted to quit. I had kind of a real depressing time. I started off my season of my freshman year at Penn State. I won my first college tournament. I won the first few dual meets and got ranked and beat a top 3 guy from Cal Poly. And then I lost, and then I lost again. Then I lost again. And it's tough to pull out of. I had 5 straight losses, and you know what? There's no easy way in the sport, and it's why sometimes you'll see a highly recruited kid, transfer right away or start to blame it on this or that. And but you know what? In this sport, you got to get up and you got to face it, and there's no easy way to dig out of it. Because you might have 2 or 3 days coming the next as you got the defending Eastern champ and all this and that, and you're starting to doubt yourself. And so I had a period of 5 straight losses. I talk about that in my book. That's, it was a real depressing time, but I appreciated one of my teammates, Dan Faust in particular. He was a great wrestler and really close battles with Mike Brown and Lieberman. And he just laughed at me after I had a couple of those losses. And he knew me. He was the guy I stayed with on my recruiting trip. Just a real vivacious character individual. And they called me John Boy, because or Boy Wonder. I'd like Boy Wonder, but they just call me Boy. And he goes, boy, what are you gonna do? Look at the schedule and just laugh at me. Like, how are you gonna deal with this guy in 2 or 3 days? So they didn't sugarcoat it and say like, oh, that's okay, John, you'll get him next time, because it wasn't like that. There were some things that need to be worked on, and some things that you need to show up differently because you weren't going to get them next time. And that's the thing about the sport. It's real, and it's just like, it's relentless. Yeah. And if you don't step in there and you overcome those obstacles, it's just in your face is what it is. So I didn't want to quit, but you know what? It was a little depressing.
Yeah.
That's when I think about a time about a depression, I think about that,
It's interesting talking about that 5-run losing streak you had and being depressing. And, I think about that in business because, I meet a lot of people starting companies, and most people, they don't realize how they're going to have a few early successes and then it's going to get tough. And they don't want to stick with it after, if it's tough for a year, or if it's tough for half a year, or if it's tough for 2 years, most people quit, they leave, and then, you got to make it through that difficult period. And then you get out on the other side of it. Some people call it the dip. You start out and, you're on this upward trajectory, and boom, you got to spend some time down in that chasm. And if you do that, things are golden for you on the other side.
Absolutely. I think it's really where an individual or if you're trying to manage individuals, it's really where you learn about yourself, and you kind of learn about really what type of fortitude you have, because that's what it takes, I think. That's why I always kind of looked at baseball players and admired them somewhat, because they have to fail so much and deal with failure and then step back up there. Because that's tough to kind of strike out a few times, and to always step back in there with some confidence. So
that's interesting.
I kind of admire what they do in that sport.
Well, I had a different mindset back then. I have to admit, I never lost 5 in a row. It'd just be one or whatever. And I never looked at a loss as a loss. I looked at it as an opportunity for me to gain knowledge on how to be better. And so when I looked at it that way, what it did was create more motivation for me to work harder and smarter to beat my opponents. And John, I like to, I think that people, you as a wrestler, I wanted you to talk a little about how the skills that you learn from this amazing sport, the greatest sport on the planet, and how you use those skills later to become a successful businessman, a successful father, husband, and what you're doing today. Let's talk about that. The skills, life skills, the skills you learned from wrestling, how you apply them to what you're doing today in business and things you're doing.
Absolutely. Well, from the times I've managed health clubs and great groups of fitness professionals, I think that a lot of that carries over of what the coaches have instilled in us over the years, when just kind of breaking down from a technical standpoint, but just always, I think the common ingredient is just infusing positive motivation. And it's something that I've been blessed with, having coaches that have infused that with me. Even the times that you could be down after a loss, you always had a coach that could be real with you, kind of just let you know he was still in your corner and kind of push you to be your best. And if you wanted to put that extra work in, if somebody is always there for you. And so that's what I try to be. From personal training standpoint, something that I've kind of been involved with for a number of years, whether it's training celebrities, VIPs, professional athletes, it's really kind of from the person you're trying to push, knowing that you wouldn't put them through anything that you wouldn't put yourself through. So I think having a little bit of cauliflower ear helps that for them to kind of know that you kind of face the grind yourself.
Yeah, that's right, man. It's our trademark.
But it was a strength coach I had assigned to me at Penn State, Dan Riley. I didn't like going in the weight room. I didn't like doing that, and I didn't like the mentality of guys like yelling at each other, "Come on, get this rep," and calling them derogatory names. So I was like, you know what? My high school coach gave me the key to the weight room, and I knew I needed to do the extra work. But then at Penn State, it was like, no, you don't understand, John. You have to go see the strength coach.
That's
and
right.
I was dreading seeing him because he I know he was a beast, and he only worked with the football team, but he wanted to work with the wrestlers because he knew he could push them. So I was pretty much looking back, I was honored to have him as my personal strength coach. Dan Riley put me through that 30-minute workout and every workout thereafter with the most intensity that was possible for me, physically, genetically. He let me know that, your parents gave you a genetic gift, and you can only do so much with it, but make the most of it. And I took his exercise science classes, and he kind of inspired me to do what I do. But the common ingredients, when I finished that session, I couldn't walk the next day because of, shock and awe. Mm-hmm. But you know what? Every second of it, he let me know he was with me along the way. Every rep, middle of every rep, even though when he's throwing high intensity negatives at me, he infused me with good positive motivation. He let me know I was working hard. He knew I was working hard. It made me want to work harder. And so that was the ingredient. And that's what inspired me to kind of take this into the public sector and work with individuals. And the common denominator of any of my private clients, I've had so many successful private clients. So it's an honor for me to kind of be the only one to tell them what to do for that hour of the day. And but the common denominator I see is they put fitness as a front and center, as a daily routine in their life. And so I kind of reciprocate and just kind of honor them by being the guy that is the only one that they were allowed to say what to do. So I always like that.
What was it like being this international, from being a brutal wrestler, making the transition from the wrestling mat and going into the beauty world?
Hey, it was amazing to be around all the world's beautiful women and the supermodels, and going on being in product advertisements and, knowing that not many wrestlers, even if they'd won the Olympics, weren't going to be on the cover of the Wheaties box or anything, except for, like Cael Sanderson ended up on there, but he's
did he? Wow.
But, so it was neat. I was on cover of fashion magazines, sports magazines, and all kinds of ads, and working all the major markets around the world, and Milan and Tokyo and Paris and Zurich, and just going off on all different amazing exotic shoots on cruise lines down to Acapulco to just South Pacific Islands. So it's been amazing. It was really kind of neat to be part of, and and I told you earlier, one of the perks that came out of it, I met my wife Kirsten, and so it's been really cool. There's friends in that business I keep in touch with. There's a lot of great athletes, a lot of surfers, and a couple of football players, different kind of guys that have come from different walks of life. And it was at a time when the photographer that I started working with had kind of changed the whole industry. He shot all the Calvin Klein and Ralph Lauren stuff, and he was the guy that was looking for kind of real men, athletic backgrounds, not just cookie cutter models. Guys with broken nose like me, and having a face that's been stitched up in 8 different places. So it's funny to think that all of a sudden
people love that. People love that, especially the women.
Doing covers of different fashion magazines and being in product ads, or when you're in Tokyo and being in all the TV commercials, and so doing the runway shows like at the Eiffel Tower in Paris on New Year's, to televised nationwide, and just amazing journey, and I feel fortunate to have kind of experienced that. I called it getting my master's degree and running around around the world in life. So
yeah, how many years was that for?
That was like 5 years of work.
5 years. Wow, amazing experience.
Yeah. It's interesting because both of you were discovered in kind of interesting ways. Buddy was you were at a dance contest, right?
Gene Mills at the Olympic Training Center got me to go to the club and stuff. So he got me to go to, try out for this dance contest with the jump rope, and that was the beginning of something amazing. Yeah. And I won the dance contest, and Gene said, if you win, we got to split the money. So he still reminds me of that. So I split the money with him, and he tells the story to all his kids and everybody. And then the next day they did a press release, and then from there, ABC, CBS, they did something nationally, and then it just went viral. Yeah, amazing experience. So I started having the John Hanrahan experience, traveling all around the globe and stuff, and it was just amazing experience.
Yeah, you have an amazing story, and it's very motivating. Talking about motivation, and when you came in and shared your story and what you do with my group of fitness professionals that I put together there.
Yeah,
and,
thanks for having me, man. That was fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah, tell everybody about the clubs. I mean, you Lifetime Fitness you used to run.
Yeah, I'm not associated. I'm not associated with them right now. I just have my own kind of health and wellness business, privatetraining.com. Privatetraining.com is my wellness business. So I'm working with individuals and organizations to kind of keep them healthy.
What can we get if we get trained by you? So what do we expect to get? Everything: nutrition, fitness, mindset. What do we get?
Four pillars, I'd say: nutrition, flexibility, which is often an overlooked pillar of fitness, cardiovascular, and strength. So I focus on those 4 pillars. But when I think of flexibility, I'm thinking about 360 degrees of wellness, because when that stretch time is really kind of a meditative, and it's, for me, it's kind of channeling good spirits that I've been shown through my near-death experience, channeling it to others. And so I kind of, I think is kind of a full circle approach with the mind and body. And
nice.
And I'm also kind of teaching I'm also teaching a curriculum to high school kids at a private school here in Alpharetta. So I'm teaching them to really focus and hone in on those 4 pillars of health and fitness so they can take ownership of their health and fitness for life, because so many kids these days are suffering from anxiety and things like that. And I've seen it, or I'm working with kids, trying to overcome addictions and really a positive addiction like fitness is something that can really help balance things out. So I'm a big advocate for that. And it's awesome. Something that I'm trying to do.
Yeah. So if you wanted to give advice to high school kids who want to win state championships, let's focus on that for a second here. What would you say to a high school student who wants to win a state title?
First thing I would say is to be ready to do the extra work, to do, at least take the opportunity of the clubs that are around now. I think that's important. And I think really to kind of have fun at it and not get caught up too much in a losing way, because I think we were speaking earlier that the time I had my breakthrough was when I went up 3 weight classes, but I put the work in. I knew I deserved to be there. Challenge the best guys in the room, learn how to drill. Kids that don't know how to drill. I know it's hard to teach kids to drill, but that's where it becomes a team sport. You've got to have a partner that understands drilling and give you good feels, and just keep getting in those situations and kind of almost play wrestling a lot. You got to be able to do that with each other and kind of just get your situations and just over and over reps. And I would say for me, my breakthrough at the college level when the NCAA was we come back at some point for a 4th on my own and do stuff against the dummy on the Atom takedown machine and do doubles until my nose was bleeding. And then I'd do dog crawls, hands and knees up and down that long Penn State room and just stuff like that until I just dropped and there was nothing left except a few tears coming out of my eyes. And that's when I knew I'd paid the price and I deserved to beat the defending national champ like Matt Reese or things like that, because in those tough situations, you got to know that you've prepared and that you've given every little bit that you have. So if you want to be good and win the state in this sport, there's a lot of opportunities now. There's so many different divisions in all these states. In Georgia, I think there's 8 possibilities of being a state champion. Wow. 7 different possibilities, divisions. So you got to get that state title, but then, set your sights higher. But if you want to do it, just pay the price and don't blame it on anybody else.
So early on, you really set your sights beyond a state title because you were taken to the NCAA tournament and you were already thinking about that post high school career, weren't you?
Yeah. What drove me, I mentioned there were 6 kids in our family, and my dad was a scientist, worked for the federal government. He was a Marine that went into the war at age 17, so I had a lot of respect for him. But he worked hard and got his PhD, and knew and then we're going to get a college education. The thing was, I wanted to pay my own way through college, so that's why my emphasis was I wanted to do well enough in high school that schools would notice me and make an investment in me making my own way through college. So that was a big factor for me doing all the extra work. I really wanted to kind of, win or lose on my own in college. I didn't want my parents having to foot a bill, and I wanted to explore different opportunities. I changed majors about 3 times because I was the one paying the bills, so I didn't have to call home and say I'm changing majors or whatever, this and that. So I was proud of that aspect of what the sport offered me, being able to have a full out-of-state scholarship at a school like Penn State.
Here's got a question for you. You've been, you also not just a wrestler, star wrestler, but you've been a coach, American University. I guess you saw their first national champion. Also probably Penn State, you were coaching. But what advice do you have for a coach in coaching a kid to become not just a one-time state champion, but a two-time state champion or whatever? What kind of advice do you have for the coach?
I think what helped me was my high school coach. He was great and just filled me with great technical knowledge. And he came to the whole Granby system. It was on one of the rival schools, Norview. But so technically had me well prepared. But his best advice was, before I went off to Penn State, he said, now forget everything and go in that room like you have to relearn everything. And I think I kind of humbled myself that way and came in the room just to relearn everything. And I did relearn a step. I kept one. I learned at Penn State to keep one foot as a push foot, one as a lead foot, almost like a fencer's attack. But you know what? He prepared me so well, and I think the head coach saw that. Coach Lorenzo saw that, because many times when he'd pull into technique, he'd have me as a young freshman demonstrate certain positions. And so I think kind of humbling yourself and kind of relearn everything. And not as a coach wants to kind of make everybody into their own image or cookie cutters, but just, buddy, and I know Will, that just it's the basics that work at any level. It's that hard-nosed double, that hard-nosed single, that knowing not to chase after throws and to really have your bread and butter. And then that down position in folk style wrestling, there's nothing like it. It just takes you need a sports psychiatrist to help you get the right state of mind when you go in there.
Yeah.
They tell us you go take that bottom position, picture yourself going into a tank of water. You're going to suffocate under there if you don't get up and out of there. So that was the last bastion for me to kind of get off of the bottom and just people and stuff. So I think talking to Coach Gable once, I asked him what his secret was, and he told me it was he'd get to know each of his athletes and try to find some unique aspect that he could connect with them and how to really motivate them. So I know there's probably no better advice than to really look at each individual, what their strengths and weaknesses are, and work with them on those.
Nice. Well said.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're getting to the end here. Want to really thank you for coming on to the show today. Were there any thoughts that you wanted to add, Buddy, or John? Anything either you guys want to talk about today?
Well, let John go, and then I'll just say something after him.
I just, it's an honor to speak with you guys. I have such an affection for Virginia wrestling, even though I'm down here in Georgia and I've kind of crisscrossed the nation, living in LA, New York City, and Miami and Atlanta. But I always have an affection for Virginia wrestling, continue to follow it, keep in close contact with my connections up there. And I look forward to getting up there and visiting with my friends up there when I can.
Nice. Well, I want to say, John, just congratulations for pursuing and continuing your sport of wrestling, our sport, and doing great things in the sport, just being a great ambassador for the sport. My only regret is that I wish that you were my teammate and we would have had a great time being teammates, just to be able to have a guy with your mindset and toughness. And, it would have been great. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. And because you're still training, you're going to get your Buddy Lee jump rope. You just go on my site and you choose what you want, and we'll send it out to you so that you can continue to stay fit and strong. Absolutely. Say hello to the family and continue to do great things.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, Will.
Thanks again, John. Yeah, we love focusing on people who have success on the mat and beyond the mat, and I think you are a perfect example of that.
One more pitch for my book. It's called Wrestling with Angels.
Go buy it.
It's a story. It's available anywhere. picture me and my boys on the back. And
Okay.
my boys say hi, and my wife sends her love to you, buddy. And Will,
Yes.
it's a pleasure speaking with you guys.
Same here.
This
All
is
right.
a lot of
I'll
fun.
be getting the book.
Can't wait to read it.
Say hi to Arturo for me.
Oh, I will. I'll call
Yes.
him right now.